Happy Friday. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish, getting you ahead of the weekend. By the way, Mother's Day weekend here on SportsGrid as well. Got some fun topics to discuss, including the NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, and Major League Baseball as well. We've got Carlin Gay from Sporting News in the house. He's covered the NBA for many, many years and also does sideline work for the WNBA. He'll be with us coming up for about 15 minutes. Sam McQuillan joins us from Legal Sports Report, and getting you ready for a big weekend in Major League Baseball, Peter Apple from Just Baseball will join us as well to give us some previews of tonight's games and the weekend as well. But we begin with the NCAA tournament, which is several months away. But naturally, when it begins, it's going to look a lot different. Here we go. Officially, the field of 64 goes from 68 several years ago and now to 76. It's the biggest men's NCAA tournament increase since it moved to 64 back in 1985. Here's how it's going to work. The first 4 games will be replaced with a 12-game opening round. For the men's tournament, those games will be placed on Tuesday and Wednesday of the opening week tournament, with the other 12 games being played between Dayton and another city to be announced. For the women's tournament, the 12-team opening round will take place Wednesday and Thursday between Selection Sunday and when the round of 64 begins on Friday. Why is this happening? The NCAA says, or at least they're reported, that another $50 million annually is coming to the NCAA tournament. So money does tell the story once again. Okay, in the NBA last night, no surprises. Unfortunately, that's what we're looking for. We didn't get it yesterday. The Pistons beat the Cavs pretty handily, 107-97. And the Pistons have now won 5 straight playoff games dating back to the Magic, so they're certainly playing their best basketball right now. Cade Cunningham had 25 and 10. Donovan Mitchell had 31 in a losing effort. Game 3 will be Saturday in Cleveland, where the Cavs have played extremely well. And Cunningham says at this point, it's all about winning.
I just want to win games. It's been a lot of games down the stretch where it's tight, and we gotta have productive possessions, balls in my hands, and I got to make plays with it. So, I think that's where it comes from, is just trying to make the best play. Obviously, the pressure and the moment, or whatever the word is I'm looking for, it's high stakes at the end of the game is what I'm trying to say. And you got to make plays. So I think all of that stuff fuels me, but just trying to do best by my team and make sure that I'm helping my team the best I can is what I'm trying to do.
Fourth quarter and took your first lead since the first possession of the game, and then Detroit closed the game on a 28-16 and extended run the rest of the way. Why do you think that you guys could not, get over the hump again in the fourth quarter?
Timely makes by them, timely offensive rebounds, timely misses by us. I think all of that as a collective, and I go back and watch the film, but just my initial response is just they countered, they hit, and they did what they're supposed to do. They won 2 at home.
And the Cavs have played well at home, so we'll see what happens this weekend. Meanwhile, no drama whatsoever between the Thunder and Lakers. 125-107 yesterday. Maybe for a second it looked like the Lakers were going to cover in this one, but they did not. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 22, Chet Holmgren with 22. Austin Reeves had 31 in the loss, but the physicality of the Thunder seems to be propelling them in this series, says Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Absolutely. The way basketball works, usually the more physical team and the team that imposes their will more just wins. And that's probably why we won tonight. Probably why we won last game. We did a good job, especially in the second half, of really playing our style of basketball, being physical, pressuring them, making things uncomfortable.
I think tonight, we did a good job with our first defense. We got a clean glass. We got to do a better job. We let Chet get some offensive rebounds and some putbacks, either get to the free throw line or get some putbacks. Versus a team like that, you can't, give up second chance points. We did a great job in the Houston series, as the series went on, of being better at that. So we got to do a better job of hitting, and not allowing them to get second chance points. We're able to hold a team like that to our first stop. I think we can get better at that.
Lakers will be home this weekend. Couple of games in the NBA tonight. Coming up with Carlin Gay. We'll preview those games. All right, now let's go over to Major League Baseball, where the red-hot Cubs just continue to win. 8-3 yesterday over the Cincinnati Reds. Shota Imanaga with his best start of the season, 6 innings pitched and 10 strikeouts. Michael Conforto red hot. He's 3 for 3. The Cubs have won 9 in a row and 15 in a row in Chicago. Here is Craig Counsell on Michael Conforto, who is red hot as well, 3 for 3 with a home run.
Yeah, he had a big day, and just, they have bats that he's provided, like in limited playing time. That's just really impressive, I think. I think he's like at 42 or 3 or something like that plate appearances on the year, and it's just been huge production. So to come up, hasn't started in a while, and hasn't started since I think last game of the road trip, and delivers kind of player of the game offensively. That's a pretty nice piece to have on your team.
And the hot team in the American League are the Tampa Bay Rays. They continue to win 7 in a row. They beat the Red Sox as road dogs. Junior Caminero hit another home run as they just continue to win, and the Red Sox going through it. Roman Anthony placed on the injured list. Meanwhile, the A's blow out the Philadelphia Phillies 12-1. Tough start for Andrew Painter, who gave up 8 runs in 3 2/3. JT Ginn, 8 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts. Shea Langoliers and Brent Rooker both hit home runs, and Langoliers recently had a baby and has found some dad strength through that.
Dad strength, you know what it's all about, buddy. Give it to us. Give us the play-by-play at the plate for you in that first at bat.
Yeah, obviously, they're definitely sad to leave my newborn son, but excited to be back. And everybody always talks about, when you have a baby, the dad strength kicks in, and I think part of that's just the lack of sleep, and you just come out here and it's kind of a little bit more of a carefree feeling, playing with less tension. Just kind of, having your first kid kind of changes the way how you think.
All right, the Pirates beat the Diamondbacks also yesterday 4-2. That was a close spread. Mitch Keller ended up winning this one. 6 innings pitched, 2-1 the final. Brandon Lau ended up hitting a home run in this one. He's been great, by the way, for Pittsburgh. Here's Keller on the team fighting.
Yeah, I'm saying it all year. There's no. We have all the fight in the world on this team, so one game's not going to knock us down. And I think we just keep showing that every time out. But yeah, just same mentality. Today's a new day. Nobody cares what happened yesterday, and let's win today.
And for the Yankees yesterday, mixed emotions. They beat the Rangers 9-2, but they lost Jason Dominguez. He ran into the wall and has a shoulder issue. He's going to be put on the injured list. They're calling up their top prospect, Spencer Jones, to debut this weekend. Here is Aaron Boone on him.
On Spencer, what are the reports that you've gotten out of him, and have you seen some of his at-bats in AAA?
Yeah, I have. Good, and especially he got off to an okay start, but then hit a little snag there for about a week or so. And then I feel like the last 3-4 weeks, been having a lot of consistent at-bats. The power's been there, less swing and miss, which is some of the things we were seeing a little bit in spring training after that, maybe second week in AAA where, he went and struggled a little bit with the swing and miss. He's cleaned that up, and I think I saw leading all of minor league baseball in RBIs, plural, and so he's put himself in the mix. So doesn't mean that's the way we'll go. We got to talk about it, but the signs have been encouraging.
Spencer Jones should be in the lineup this weekend for New York. All right, now the Hurricanes beat the Flyers 4-1. They're going to end up winning that series. They're up 3-0. Sabres look to take a 2-0 lead over the Canadiens. Golden Ducks and Golden Knights tied at 1. We'll be right back.
Over the summer where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans, currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like
to test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, okay, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
All right, Carlin Gay is back with us on Sporting News to go over the NBA. He was pretty much spot on the other day with us, so we'll see if we can duplicate some of the predictions from Carlin as he joins us now from Sporting News. All right, Carlin, so let's start with this series this is, sort of the pivotal time, I think, moving forward. Detroit beats Cleveland 107-97. Cleveland had their way at home with the Toronto Raptors, and there's just this general assumption that that's what's going to happen. The tide will turn when it goes back to Cleveland. But Detroit seems to be playing like they were back in January and February, where they were playing this consistent form of basketball and just rolling off the wins. So that's my big question to you coming out of this. Do you think that this series now shifts completely in terms of going to Cleveland and Cleveland winning games, or is Detroit now playing that basketball we saw earlier in the year?
I'll start with Detroit because, I do want to give them some credit here. They've been playing this style of basketball, to your point, since day one. Like they started this, they had this identity, they know what they are, they know what they aren't, and they've been able to kind of stack up wins because of it. They're leading to the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They now have a 2-0 lead in the second round of the playoffs after getting bounced last year in the first round. So they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then, oh, by the way, Kate Cunningham is actually performing at the All-NBA level that we expect him to perform in the playoffs. On the flip side, we have not seen that from the Cleveland Cavaliers just yet. And I know a lot of the talking heads are going to talk about James Harden and his lack of playoff performance. Guess what? You could probably replay a bunch of talking heads doing that last year, the year before that, and even back to 10 years ago when he was a little bit younger and in his prime. He's no longer the MVP candidate that he was before. So anyone that expected him to be any different than what he was in the playoffs in years past was fooling themselves, really. Like the Cleveland Cavaliers, I don't think traded for James Harden to be a high-level playoff performer. What they traded James Harden to be was more durable than Darius Garland, who was missing the last 2 playoff runs. At least James Harden's showing up on the court and actually playing in those games. I think that's what they wanted him to be. And then, of course, to take off some of the load off of Donovan Mitchell to help him out in the postseason. Can James Harden play better? Yes. Is he the main reason why they are down 0-2? No. The main reason why they're down 0-2 is Donovan Mitchell did not play well in Game 1. He played better in Game 2, but not at the level that we expect him to be at, if this Cavaliers team is going to get past the Detroit Pistons. The other player that has not shown up is Evan Mobley. 9 points and 1 freaking rebound. You cannot go out there and get 1 rebound as a big man, whether it's in the preseason, regular season, or in the second round of the playoffs.
That is a bad performance out of Evan Mobley. So for all the crap that James Harden's going to take over the next 36 hours until they play again, it really should be redirected to two people, and that's Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell, because those are the two best players in the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they have to be the two best players on the Cleveland Cavaliers to get through this series, and they can't rely on James Harden to be someone that is going to be one of the two best players on the team. He's really their third option, and he should be just fine in that role. But if you're expecting more out of him, then the Cavaliers will be at home pretty soon.
Yeah, well said. And Detroit should be big favorites, although Boston was against Philadelphia. We saw how that played out, but we'll see when the series continues this weekend. Meanwhile, it looks like we're headed toward probably a sweep or a series in 5. I just, Carlin, have not seen enough from the Lakers to think that they can win a game in this series. Now, I do believe the Lakers will cover one of the next two. I really do think that. LeBron tends to gravitate a team to a really close game and a buzzer beater, whether they win or lose, I don't know. So I think that's going to happen in LA. But unfortunately, the Lakers just very undermanned against the best team in the NBA.
Yeah, and I think the rants from, whether it's JJ Redick or Austin Reeves, LeBron did not rant as much, or actually didn't really say anything last night in terms of the officials. Once you start complaining about the officials and making that the main point of a loss where you really got blown out in game 2, that shows me that you can't beat that team, and you're just looking and drawing at anything you possibly can to get some level of an edge going back home for game 3. The Oklahoma City Thunder should sweep the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, no one should be surprised about that at all. The question is now at this point, Craig, if you're a bettor, is like, hey, can they get one game or can they cover? And right. I think they can get a cover, to your point, in game 3. They'll shoot better, right? They'll go back home. They'll feel comfortable. They'll shoot better. And game 3 really is their season on the line, because they go down 3-0, then you could just get the brooms out. Because I do – the one thing about this Oklahoma City Thunder team, people forget, hey, they won the championship last year. It's like we kind of talk about them like as if they're not the defending champions. That got better, right? And they're still missing pieces. Jalen Williams has been out. He was their second best player. They could still get better throughout this playoff run. So I don't think anybody's really shocked by them being up 2-0. They haven't lost yet in the postseason. They should kind of sweep this Laker team. And I am looking forward to see if the Thunder have that killer instinct to just get the Lakers out there, because they know, yesterday they played, that third quarter without Shea. He was in foul trouble. And they were able to actually extend the lead and went on a big run without their best player on the floor. And they have that edge. And Craig, you've seen it with championship teams. They could flip the switch and just kind of turn it on whenever they want and go out there and dominate the team. And what Oklahoma has to be careful of is when you go on the road and when the switch flips and it doesn't flip the way that it would at home,
right,
then you end up losing a game that you shouldn't. But they are talented enough, and if they have that killer instinct, it really should just be a 4-0 sweep, and you kind of get that rest to get ready for whoever's next in the next round.
Yeah, and they're favored to sweep. I mean, right now their odds are -3.5 games, -155. Wow. I mean, you don't usually see that in any series in the NBA. Just to close this one out, by the way, Carlin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not heard a peep on Luka Doncic, which tells me he is just not coming back in the playoffs, right? I mean, at this point, I haven't heard a thing.
Yeah, next time we see Luka will be in October. The last time he spoke, he said that he finally gave a timeline. They told him that it was going to be 8 weeks, and that 8-week window isn't over yet. So he ain't coming back. And I would not bring him back if I was the Lakers either at this point. You see what you have in game 3. You fight with the men that you have right now, but bringing him back into the series is just going to maybe prolong his recovery further into the offseason. Just get ready for next year if you're Luka Doncic. You don't want to risk his future.
Yeah, and the Lakers will say, regardless of what happened, they beat Houston in a series that they weren't supposed to win. You would probably categorize it as a successful season, not as successful as they would have wanted to be, but a successful season getting to that point. All right, Carlin's going to stick around with us because we'll preview the 2 games that are left. Speaking of successful seasons, the 76ers definitely had one too, regardless of what happened. So we'll preview their game against the Knicks, and we'll update the current point spread on that, and also preview the Spurs and Timberwolves next here on NewsWire. Don't go away. Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Carlin Gay continues with us as we get ready for the big weekend in the NBA. And, you know, Carlin, this is one of those where I feel like we have to be very careful with a point spread in the NBA, because tonight the Knicks will play the 76ers. And I think when you look at the odds here, it feels a little fishy to me, which is why I think the Sixers win tonight, because everyone is going to load up on New York here. I mean, that's the, oh my gosh, how can the Sixers be favored? The Knicks are a lot better. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I know OG Anunoby is out, and maybe, Carlin, he's worth a point at most, maybe half a point in this game. But to me, that would be my concern for the Knicks, is that if you told me he'll go ahead and make the line in this game, I would have said, Knicks pick 'em, Knicks by one. The Sixers being favored tells me, got to be careful on this one tonight. I think Philadelphia absolutely has a shot.
Yeah, they do. And this is a must-win situation. Like, their season's on the line in this one. What's going to be interesting for me is whether or not Joel Embiid actually plays in this game. And, you know, I actually think that for this matchup specifically, I'm not talking about overall, and I'm talking about championship, potential. But for this matchup specifically, the less Joel Embiid, the better for the Sixers, because they played well in game 2 and gave the Knicks different problems to kind of solve when Joel Embiid wasn't in the lineup in game 2. Now, can the Knicks make adjustments? Absolutely. But if they don't have OG Anunoby, those adjustments are going to be very limited. And OG Anunoby should not play in this game. If I'm advising the New York Knicks, sit OG down, because the hamstring injury is one of those things that always get re-aggravated. You don't want to put OG in that situation, because if he gets his hamstring injury and misses the rest of the playoffs, kiss your championship hopes goodbye if you're the Knicks. So he's not playing in this game, in my opinion. The flip side, if Embiid does play, it makes the Sixers a little bit more predictable. If he doesn't play, then you have a little bit more fluidity in that offense. The ball is going to move a lot better, and that's going to cause some problems for the Knicks to have to guard all 5 positions. So, for the line itself, I think the Sixers will have a better chance of blowing the Knicks out, winning by 10 or more. If Embiid doesn't play, I think it's a closer game if he does play, because it makes their offense a little bit more predictable and something for them to kind of set up against and mitigate. And that's, again, if Mitchell Robinson also plays in this one too, which he should after missing game 2.
Do you like anyone in particular in this game?
I like the Sixers because I think that, and this is a complete chip on their shoulder kind of moment. Not only do they have to win the game, but there's going to be a lot of Knicks fans in that building. And whenever you have a lot of, opposing team fans in your building, you kind of want to shut them up in your own building. So, it's going to feel like a road game for the Sixers for some parts of that game. I think the Sixers use that fuel and go out and kind of say it's us against the world, and they get game 3.
Okay, fair enough. All right, now out west, the Spurs are 4.5-point favorites against the Timberwolves, probably off the strength of the last game that we saw. Minnesota stole the first game. We know that Anthony Edwards very clearly is not 100% healthy. He didn't start even the last game as well. Maybe he starts tonight. We'll see. Total of 216.5. The odds are sort of telling us, Carlin, maybe a close game. Spurs win. Timberwolves cover. I don't know. It kind of feels like it could go either way. But, odds makers are certainly telling us the Spurs not only are going to win tonight, but they're going to win the series.
Yeah, I think the Spurs will win the series. And I've been really impressed with San Antonio all season long, because whenever they face any adversity, they've kind of bounced back pretty easily and made a point to make it a dominant sort of win on the other end of that. We saw that, when they lost game 2 in the first round, they went on the road. We knew that Wemby wasn't going to play because of the concussion, and without him, they actually just destroyed the Blazers, and that was the end of the series. Game 1, they dropped. It was an emotional loss for them. They come right back in game 2, and the Timberwolves didn't really have anything for the Spurs in that game. So going on the road now, you have a healthy Wembanyama. You know that Anthony Edwards is kind of compromised. He's going to be coming off the bench. Once you weather that initial wave, that's going to happen. The offense, they're going to hit some shots. The Timberwolves are. The crowd's going to be up for it. Once you weather that and you get back into just straight up basketball, I think Wemby takes over. He's so tough inside and just changes the geometry of the court. I think the Spurs do win this one comfortably on the road.
Okay, so let's go to the East real quick and then the West. Sounds to me, Carlin, like you like Detroit in the East. I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me. You'll tell me if I'm wrong. Knicks are -110. Accurate or inaccurate?
I think the Knicks healthy are still my pick, but Detroit are right now better suited to make that push for the playoffs. And then quickly, if we're talking about out west, I still have the Thunder. I think the experience that they're going to have, the advantage over the Spurs, gives that to me. By the way, one thing to look over for the weekend, the draft lottery is on Sunday. Maybe that gives us a little bit of clues as where Giannis Antetokounmpo will end up, because everybody will have their draft pick at that point.
Good point. Miami Heat, first pick. Thanks, Carly.
Over the summer, where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like
to test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, yeah, come on, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always great to catch up with Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. And Sam is getting ready for a big weekend of some hoops and, of course, Mother's Day, I know, as well. Sam, thanks for coming on the show. Really great to catch up with you. So a big shakeup yesterday, I noticed over at Legal Sports Report. FanDuel is I guess, ousting Amy Howe. She's out as their CEO. And, you know, I guess my question for you, Sam, is that things were just so lovely with FanDuel and DraftKings and BetMGM and all these companies 5-6 years ago, you know, when sports betting became legal and then state after state became legal. I mean, wasn't this and isn't this just sort of inevitable where these companies are looking at their CEOs and their high price tickets and we're just not getting any new states being legalized? It's kind of hard to justify the advertising and even the people that are working in the company when they've already, you know, with all due respect, captured all the people, emails, phones that they need to capture at this point. I mean, outside of just saying sign up for $5 and you get $1 million, I mean, what's left to get people in? If they're in, they're going to be in by now.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think definitely starting with the fact that, yes, you're right. For the last 5-6 years, around when Howe took over about 5 years ago, FanDuel and DraftKings, it's pretty much just been them dominating everything. And like you mentioned, spending on advertising and continuing to kind of the main mission they've had is how do we get more money out of our sportsbook customers? Obviously, there's not a ton of new states turning on. So how do we make them bet these high margin bets better? How are we more efficient from a business operating standpoint? And, you know, we've seen DraftKings turn to different levers to kind of, you know, save money or make profits when investors want that. But when you look at the kind of the big picture here is that the stock for FanDuel is down almost 60% over the past year, which is kind of shocking. If I dropped you on earth about a year ago, you would be shocked to hear that, because like you mentioned, Craig, FanDuel has been the number one sports book pretty much for the past half decade. Really kind of what happened was they were doing really well, and then they had one kind of hiccup bad quarter at exactly the wrong time. It was, they spent way too little on promotions during NFL season. Their handle dropped down sharply, and they missed the last, earnings that they were going to give to off the Wall Street estimates. So it kind of just was a perfect storm of things were going really great, and then all of a sudden one hiccup, and then you bake in all the prediction market pressures there as well. It's kind of the first time ever when you talk to analysts that people are sort of worried about the future of FanDuel. There's cracks in the surface. So not only are they replacing their CEO, they also have a new sportsbook improvement plan to catch up on kind of some of the ground they've lost. Flutter CEO Peter Jackson, the company that owns FanDuel, talked about this week on the call that they entered the year with, frankly, less customers than they thought they would, which, again, when a company has been so dominant and so good at what it does, and then you start to hear, okay, maybe we're not doing as great as we thought we would, investors start to worry. They obviously got spooked. The stock drops, and when the stock is down that much over the past year, somebody kind of has to pay the price. So while it might not be kind of all on how, there are some, FanDuel TV investments that might not have turned out quite the way she wanted to, some sort of external marketing spend, and maybe not focusing in the right areas, but she's obviously going to someone's going to have to pay the price at the end of the day. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of where FanDuel and Flutter go from here. Again, tumultuous time when you have prediction markets taking over, and we just really don't know what the next couple months are going to look like. But what we do know, Craig, is that the fourth quarter football season is going to be like the biggest make or break quarter yet for the company, which again comes after years of dominance. So it's definitely, things are shook up right now in the industry.
Yeah, a lot. Okay, so that's the better explanation for the one that I gave, going on and on. Okay, so let's get to Michigan. The Senate is eliminating online casino and trying to make more money off sports betting taxes. I think that's my quick summary for what we're about to discuss here.
Yeah, the state of Michigan, the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, along with the state Senate and the state House, just agreed on a new budget, or rather the legislature passed the new budget. Whitmer's version would have increased taxes on sports betting as well as online casino, about $800 million. She wanted to copy what Illinois did, which is add that 25-cent per bet fee to the first $20 million bets that a company takes. And then for every bet after that, it's another 50 cents. So Illinois, a lot has been made about their tax rate. It's a handle tax, basically, on top of already a high tax rate. And the industry has obviously been very upset about it. And what they've done is actually pass the tax down to customers there. If you're in Illinois, you'll see I think a surcharge fee it's called, or there's a bet minimum sometimes as well. And betting has actually dropped off in Illinois as a result. So the governor wanted to pass kind of the same thing in Michigan, and the Senate actually came out and said, no, we're not going to pass that. Now is not a good time to really consider any tax hikes, citing kind of the state of the economy. It's notable that, she really only wanted to raise taxes on, gambling, tobacco as well, but sin taxes is what we call them. But the legislature kind of said it would be a really bad time to do that, just optically. We don't want to be tone deaf to what's going on. Mm-hmm. So ended up not passing, which is actually a big win for the industry. I'm sure they're happy. They're not going to have to pay, almost $1 billion more in taxes next year. But pretty interesting as well. It was a Democrat-controlled House, Democrat-controlled Senate, Democrat governor kind of disagreeing on this. So on the backdrop of it all, it could be prediction markets. If we raise taxes, people are just going to move over to prediction markets. But who knows with that whole thing? It's obviously a good thing for the industry that this didn't pass, but we'll see if kind of the same thing happens in other states as the year goes on.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's get to the raging debate that continues on. But I find it interesting that some of these executives from the sports betting companies, particularly DraftKings, wonder what the future holds for prediction markets and debating whether or not they're sports betting or their predictions, because naturally, DraftKings now has a vested interest on DraftKings predicts. And so I wonder for them, even, Sam, what their interest is at this point, because as long as no other states like California and Texas are getting legalized, DraftKings probably stands to make money from prediction markets just as like they do with the sports betting, right?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I think a couple months ago when we first talked about prediction markets emerging, everyone was like, oh, DraftKings and FanDuel are going to be screwed. They can't do this. And what they did was just wait a few months to kind of do it on their own. And as opposed to other companies like BetMGM and Caesars, which have maintained that, those are not, that's sports betting. It's taking away from our business. It should be regulated the same. DraftKings and FanDuel, they both said, okay, this is going to be allowed. We're just going to use it to enter states like California and Texas where sports betting is not technically legal. And that's what DraftKings has been doing. One of their executives just this week at a Milken Institute panel talked about how it's really helped the company grow its customer base and saved a lot of money in doing so. Because again, you don't have to pay any taxes to the state on this kind of thing. You can reach states like Texas and California where DraftKings has been one of the companies that spent, I think, almost $500 million trying to get sports betting legalized. And then on the other hand, you have companies like Kalshi and Robinhood, which are kind of trying to defend this as a better overall consumer experience because it's peer-to-peer. There's more opportunity for different prices on different game lines, especially. But then you look at companies like DraftKings that have sports betting, and they're saying we're on platforms like Kalshi ourselves. We're using our own technology to make money off this and be market makers on these peer-to-peer platforms. And we're also doing it, by the way, on our platforms as well. We have these new super apps where no matter what state you go to, you click on DraftKings, you're basically in a sports book. They've acknowledged from a consumer standpoint, it's the exact same thing. From a mechanical standpoint and a legal standpoint, all that is different, in order to get around those hoops. But again, it's something right now that DraftKings is really focused on for the rest of the year. I think they're going to spend about $300 million more in investment. And then once we have NFL season roll around, that's when we'll see really whether that investment pays off and, kind of who is on top in prediction markets at that time. But who knows what's going to happen by then, Craig? You have 20 lawsuits playing out in over a dozen states. Maybe the Supreme Court will get involved. It's still very uncertain, but I think in the meantime, companies kind of have a clear vision of what we're going to do in the interim.
All right. Well, Sam, good luck to your Knicks this weekend, and we'll see what we have next week in terms of that series. I know you'll be watching. Thanks again for coming on the show. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you, Craig.
All right, Sam McQuillan here with us. All right, we'll take a quick timeout. When we come back next, Peter Apple joins us from Just Baseball. Are the Cubs legit? They appear to be so. We'll get Peter's thoughts on their streak next.
Over the summer where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like
to test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, okay, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Always fun to chat with Peter Apple from Just Baseball as we get ready for another weekend in the league. And Peter's got some thoughts certainly on everything that has transpired this week. And give a preview of the weekend. Peter, great to have you here on the show. I think it's sort of appropriate that we start with the hottest team in baseball because a lot of folks thought they would be good at the beginning of the season, but certainly their odds are changing and rapidly moving on the upside here. The Cubs, Peter, have gone from a team that we thought may make the postseason to maybe now a team that could win 100 games. We saw Imanaga pitch well. I mean, they're bringing Conforto off the bench every time they do. He seems to hit. So, I mean, look, no team is winning every game this season, and they have a 9-game winning streak, and they've won all these games at home. But I suppose they're a little bit overachieving from what we thought at the beginning of the season. Is that fair?
I think it's moderately fair. I think they're definitely overachieving for a team who already lost Cade Horton and then just recently lost Matthew Boyd to I think it was a knee injury. He's getting meniscus surgery because unfortunately he was playing with his children and something happened. So he's going to miss the next 6 weeks. So you look at the current Cubs rotation and you say, how are they going to continue to do this? Well, I think they're at least going to be really good because of their offense. And a big change from last year to this year is introducing Moises Ballesteros, who has an OPS near 900. He's this 5'8", 200-pound slugger with a beautiful swing. I want to shout out the Baseball Tonight podcast. Paul Hembekides was actually coming up with some comparisons. So Moises Ballesteros reminds him of Adrian Gonzalez, if we remember his time, great MLB hitter. And just for his ability to hit in all 4 quadrants, right? He can hit up and in, low and away, up and away, low and in. He just has a really, really smooth swing. He's got a big leg kick, but his ability to stay on time is really, really impressive. And the Cubs already had a great lineup last year, right? They were a playoff team last year, but this year, this lineup is just unstoppable.
Now, I think what makes them such a solid team also is the fact that they seem to be really playing within the confines this season, meaning Wrigley Field. We know when they've had those playoff years and those championship years, or that one championship years, they played very well at home. And as of right now, as you can see, they're currently favored to win the division. Unfortunately, the Reds, who I liked a lot, are falling back here a little bit. The Reds have gone down to 11-1. Peter told us before the season, don't sleep on the Cardinals. I told him I'm deep asleep, and he was right. I mean, thus far, they're having a good year so far. All right, now let's get to the American League East, Peter, where once again, it's another season where the team that nobody talks about is the hottest team in the American League. That's the Tampa Bay Rays. They appear to be on a collision course to me with the postseason again. I don't know if it's division. I don't certainly know if it's wild card, but they're back at home in Tropicana Field. They're playing great baseball. Looks like they're in the 85 to 90 win range this season if they keep it up. McClanahan is back and pitching well. Caminero is having a great year. What am I missing? It seems like they've pressed the right buttons again.
I totally agree with you about pressing the right buttons. And I think getting back their stadium is enormous, right? We have to remember that this team played their home games at George Steinbrenner Field. Not only is that a minor league park, it's the park for your rival Yankees. Imagine going to your home ballpark every single day and half the fans don't even care to root for you. They're just there to watch a ball game, and they might be Yankee fans altogether. This year, they're back at the Trop where they have always dominated. I think right now they're 14-4, 15-4, and a big reason they've been so dominant is their pitching. Right, you already mentioned it with Shane McClanahan, 16 2/3 straight scoreless innings. Nick Martinez, the free agent that nobody wanted except for Tampa, is pitching to a 1.71 ERA. And during this stretch where the Rays have won, I think, 13 of 14 games, he has thrown 20 innings and only allowed 2 runs. And it's really the entire pitching staff. The bullpen in this stretch has a 1.07 ERA, 42 innings, only 5 earned runs allowed, and they're only allowing 1.3 runs per game going into yesterday's ball game, and the offense is doing just enough, right? Yesterday they had a good game, but ultimately 3.6 or 3.7 runs per game in that stretch. The thing is, the pitching has just been uber dominant, and it's that classic style that we're used to with Tampa. Great pitching, relentless execution, and they'll beat you by playing small ball. It's a team that nobody wants to face.
No, definitely the case. By the way, real quick, taking a look, we'll preview the race here, but I do want to touch on the Cy Young Award race, which is wide open now in the American League, but in the National League, Paul Skeens is still the favorite at plus 155. What's interesting to me here, Peter, I've said this several times on the show, covering baseball, sort of having a feel as to how things work. It seems to me, without knowing, that Shohei Ohtani wants to win the NL Cy Young. Like, he's not hitting when he's pitching. He's going all of a sudden out of nowhere, going deeper into games. I just find his number really fascinating at 7-1. I know he's got a lot to overcome with Skeens, who could throw 8 innings at any time, but what am I missing here with Ohtani? I feel like his odds should be around Sale, Sanchez, or maybe a little better. Maybe I'm off.
So here's why I wouldn't be putting a bet on Shohei Ohtani. I'm worried about the innings limit that the Dodgers, I think, are still going to put on him, because at the end of the day, the Dodgers are in search for their 3rd straight World Series. Shohei Ohtani throwing 170 innings and potentially not being at his peak come October is not in their best interest. It's not in Shohei Ohtani's best interest, right? He wants to go down as one of the best players to ever play this game, and he might. And I don't think a certain Cy Young will put him over the edge. We already know that he hits and pitches, so I just don't see him getting the innings. Talent is there, but he's already behind in starts, right? So that's already what we're dealing with. So I think it's just going to be an innings limit.
Let's preview one game if we can. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about the pitcher for Tampa Bay tonight. Honestly, you could tell me a little bit more about Connolly Early than you can Schultens tonight, who pitches for Tampa Bay. But who am I to question who Tampa Bay is throwing, right?
No, I know. And it's Jesse Schultens, who normally has been opened by Griffin Jackson. During this stretch, they've just been combining for 6 innings and 1 earned run. So what can you do? But I really like Connolly Early in this matchup. I actually like his over strikeouts. I think he could have a really dominant outing. I actually don't mind the under in this game.
Okay. Let's do. Can we have time, Chris, for Cubs Rangers? Do we have time for one more? All right, let's do Cubs Rangers tonight. Did the Cubs keep it going tonight against Kumar Rocker? Boy, I mean, Peter, the Rangers, disappointing, right? I thought they'd be better than this.
No, I know, and I certainly did too. I actually took Ben Brown under 3.5 hits allowed because I don't think that he's going to go very long. So that's at least another angle that you can go with, but I'm certainly not fading the Cubs. No way.
Gotcha. All right, fair enough. Let the trend be your friend, as we say. All right, Peter, thanks again. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, some breaking news in the NFL. We'll give it to you next.
Over the summer, where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like that.
To test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, come on, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. By the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that it's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. A couple of NFL-related notes. The first is that the referees and the league have come to an agreement. So it does appear that ESPN reports replacement refs will not be a thing. They wanted some sort of agreement in by June. Of course, that's when they have these mini camps and guys are back on the field, and they need refs for that too, by the way. So, yeah, agreement. So no nonsense and no fake refs, I guess, coming to a theater near you in the fall. But here is something that's going to be great theater on Netflix. They've got another NFL game, 49ers and Rams. That's what we're going to see Thursday, September 10th. How about this one on Netflix? Playing the game in Australia? Okay. The game will be played Friday, 10:35 a.m. Eastern, which means it happens for us at 8:35 p.m. Eastern. And also, NFL Network reports that the schedule release will take place next Wednesday or Thursday, which is always my least favorite day of the NFL calendar. Because you know what happens after that, Chris? Immediately after, on shows like ours. We get the schedule, we post it, and then somebody on some network, I don't know if we do it, but that's a win. That's a loss. That's a win. Have they not been watching the NFL for 50 years to know it means nothing? But I guess it creates content. That's what we do. All right, let's get ready to wrap up the show. The Miami Heat's going to honor everybody who were back in the day, season ticket holders back in 1988. Also, Tupac Shakur gets honored in Baltimore. And also a unique request for Louisianans when they pass away. Yeah, a little freaky here on this Friday. We'll wrap it up with some last licks. Beginning next year, the Miami Heat's offering a new courtside VIP space. It's called the 1988 Club. That's when the Heat was expanded and came into fruition. In fact, I was a season ticket holder, not the first year for the Heat, but the second year for the Heat, the 89-90 season. I went to 39 of the 41 games that season. I was a crazy basketball fan. Anyway, it's reserved for 140 members. Speakeasy lounge, in-seat dining, grab and go. Members of the club also get fly-away experiences to road games alongside players and coaches and an annual dinner. How about that with the roster? VIP space. It's called the 1988 Club, and that's when the Heat expanded back in 1988. I'll never forget that season. It was a year that the Heat just back when expansion teams used to lose like a million games. That's what happened when the Heat came in. They were a terrible team. They got better pretty quick. And ended up making the playoffs a few years later, too. They got ousted by the Hawks, as I remember it. But story for back in the day, back in the 90s. Nobody remembers that. All right. Of course, you remember rap star Tupac Shakur. And what I did not know is that Tupac spent a lot of time in Baltimore, Maryland. I had no idea. And tonight against the A's, the Orioles are actually giving out a Tupac Shakur bobblehead to the first 20,000 fans. It was actually voted by Bleacher Report as the most popular bobblehead by the Orioles or anybody else in the season. And they're going to give these away at 5 p.m. Eastern. Tupac apparently moved to Baltimore with his family in 1984 and then lived in Baltimore from 84 to 88 and attended the Baltimore School of Arts for poetry and acting. So, hey, good giveaway, I guess. And I used to be a big bobblehead guy, too, and then realized that I just don't have room for these things and ended up giving them away. I had a good collection, too. All right, we'll wrap it up with this. Okay, I know this is a little strange here to end the week, but that's what we do here on NewsWire. Have you ever thought about when you're going to pass away, what you're going to do with your ashes? This was a survey that was conducted by sportsbookreview.com. They asked 3,013 sports fans in Louisiana, of all places, which stadium they would choose for their ashes to be scattered. In Louisiana, Tiger Stadium ranked number 1. Second was the Caesars Superdome, which is where the Saints play. Smoothie King Center in New Orleans ranked 3rd. They also asked fans why they feel connected to sports venues. The top answers: memories with family and friends, supporting a team for many years, and feeling like the stadium is a second home. The survey also found that 54% of people think that stadiums should allow ash scattering in certain situations. I don't know. For me, I don't know. I'm not going to think about this for another 50 years, hopefully when I'm 100. But yeah, this is, never really thought this through. But have you, I guess, watching, thought this through? Where you want your ashes scattered? My guess is it's not going to be on a sports field. That's just me. All right, that'll do it for the show today. We leave you on that weird note. Thanks again to all our great guests here, including Peter Apple for coming on the show, and also Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report, and also Carlin Gay from Sporting News. We'll see you Sunday for Pro Baseball Today. Save your ashes. Thanks again to our crew. See you Monday.
Over the summer where there's drastic changes and gas drops down to $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon in some states, and then you have some of the price markets go down. You ride that momentum is what Joe's talking about. So if you say right now, which party will win the U.S. House, and you think it's the Republicans currently trading at 20%, you take them now, and if good press comes, that turns into 25% and 30%, then you have the option to cash out.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit. I like to test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.